What is up, guys? Che from Team Negate here, back with another video, and today we're going to be going over the best decks post YCS Cancun. So without anything further, let's just get into it. So starting off immediately, we have Altergeist. This deck, I don't even know how I can say it, guys. The support was nice or whatever, but this deck is just bad. It's had almost no tops, basically none if I can recall. This deck is just not it. Don't spend your time in this deck. Nothing much else to say. Next, we've got a very strong deck in Chimera. I'm going to throw it in, I think, tier 1.5. I think this deck is strong. It has very good one-card combos. Its plays are linear, but this deck is nonetheless very strong. Got top 32 at YCS Cancun. Yeah, this is definitely a good deck to play. Not too expensive either, but the Chimera cards are just crazy. The amount of recursion they have, your end boards, and coupled with the branded stuff, this deck is a good deck. So I would definitely say play this deck if you can. Next, we've got branded itself. So I'm gonna have to throw pure branded in tier 2. Now, the reason why I put pure branded under Chimera is definitely because this deck just loses to Ash way too hard, and Ash is played in most decks, if not sided. So I think branded just has lots of fragile weaknesses that the Chimera engine definitely covers for. So that's why I would put this in tier 2. Next, we have a very iffy deck in Dark World. Now, I'm a Dark World enthusiast. I love this deck. It's one of my favorite archetypes of all time. But I think Dark World, currently where it's at, since we're going into a very... After the ban of, Cashier or Rise Art, we're going into a very different sort of format. So maybe combo decks will be able to thrive. We're not sure yet. Hasn't been too much going on. But I think for now, the safest spot we can put Dark World in is Rogue. Then again, this deck does lose to things. It can lose to Ash at the right moment. It can definitely lose to Bestials, but Magnamut got put to 1. So we're just going to have to see. And I think I can put this in Rogue for now, for sure. Because if this deck would to become an issue, we can just side roll or main it, Dynamorphia, I'll throw this in Rogue. This deck's pretty cheesy. If you play this deck, you're probably not too good. It's just a fun cheese deck, but it's nonetheless powerful. Pretty bad in time, though. Next, we have Dragons. Now, despite the Chaos Space hit and the Magnamut hit, Dragons is definitely still a top tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Let's not forget that. The thing that makes Dragons so powerful is that, Konami just loves this deck. They favor this deck, you know what I mean? No matter what, this deck will just always continue to get stronger. Unless they ban Striker Dragon, this deck is mostly never gonna die. And Lubellion's still at 3, Druid's Worm's still at 3. This deck can still thrive. They only lost 4 cards in 2 Magma and 2 Chaos Space. So most top tier players will probably be just playing this deck at 40 now to cut it down since they lost 4 cards. But this deck is still very strong. I wouldn't say it's currently above Chimera, but I'll put it right behind it. Next, we've got Drytron. Now, Drytron is a very decent ritual deck. Rituals in all are just not that good. But Drytron can definitely take center stage depending on how the meta is. But with the Bestial hit, this deck can obviously become a lot stronger, but I'm still going to have to throw it in Rogue. Partially because this deck just has lots of vulnerabilities. Things like Droll. This deck loses to Dark Ruler if it ever becomes a problem. Unless you're playing the FTK version. But yeah, I'll just have to put Drytron in Rogue for now. Next we have Floowandereeze. Now, as we all know, Floowandereeze just won the most recent YCS. And honestly, what I have to say about this, I think Floowandereeze, guys, this is my hot take. I think Floowandereeze is going to be the second best deck in this upcoming format. The reason why I say that is because we obviously have, well, let's just get this out the way. Unchained is the best deck. We all know this. Floowandereeze has a very strong and solid matchup, not even into lots of these other decks, but Unchained as well. And, Unchained's end board can't really deal with Floowandereeze too well. But then again, Floowandereeze does get hit by things like Droll, Dark Ruler, evenly, just big board breaking cards. But nonetheless, I still think Floowandereeze will definitely take stage as the second best deck. I think we'll see this deck's numbers continue to go up, especially after taking this YCS win. And I'm pretty sure it also had 2 other tops. One in top 16 and then I believe one in top 32. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I definitely think Flanders is probably going to maybe end up being the second best deck. Who knows? We're going to see. Next we have Gold Pride Punk. This deck's cool. It's not too good, not too crazy. I'll definitely throw it in Rogue. This deck just loses really hard to Droll and things like Ash, so I'll definitely throw it in Rogue. Next we have Infernoble Knight. Now, Infernoble Knight, at YCS Vancouver, it did get top 8, and I'm not sure if it also topped this past event, but I'll put it in tier 2. It's definitely behind Branded, of course, because this deck makes a strong end board. You know, you have the Monster Pop or Negate and Gearfried, and then you have the new Link, 1 Charles. That card's really good. So this deck is definitely decent. Next we have Cash. Now, with the recent hit to Rise Heart, this deck took a big blow, but nonetheless, I still, honestly, with Fenrir being at 3, I still think Cash is going to drift towards a more like control type True Draco kind of thing. So I don't think I can put it in tier 2 for that matter, because it's still going to brick. That was always its problem. It kind of bricked. So I'll definitely put it towards Rogue for sure, because Cash can play lots of non-engine slots. So I think I'll just throw it in Rogue for now. Next we have Labyrinth. Labyrinth, I'm honestly gonna have to throw in I think it's better than tier 2, but I don't think it's good enough for 1.5. So I'll probably put it at the bottom of tier 2. Labyrinth has fell off a lot in usage due to it having a very poor Unchained matchup, and Labyrinth also is pretty easy to side against. You know, it's a back row deck. They lose to things like Ash, especially because of Big Welcome. But who knows? Maybe with the new Hot Red structure deck coming out and the Resonator cards, we'll see if people will throw that in there. Unchained Labyrinth is also pretty decent, but like I said, we're just gonna have to see. I still don't think this deck's gonna be doing very much, so, but it's definitely good. So I'll put it bottom of tier 1.5. Next we have Vanadium. Like I've been saying about all these other decks in the same aspect, this deck is very vulnerable to hand traps. Any deck that, you know, makes insanely powerful end boards is usually very vulnerable to hand traps. Like all 3 of these decks are here: Gold Pride, Dark World, Vanadium. They all have the same problem, and they lose to Droll and they lose to hand traps. But I think Vanadium is definitely better than all these decks right now. So for that, I'll put it at the top of Rogue. This deck hasn't done anything crazy. Maybe not even Rogue. I think I can probably throw it in tier 2 because this deck is strong. Like, let's not forget that this deck is strong. Next we have the Water Cybers deck in Marine Cess. Marine Cess is pretty good, pretty consistent, nice, reliable deck. Wouldn't say it's tier 2 because it hasn't had lots of tops, but this deck is definitely Rogue. It's a cheap, nice Rogue deck. Next we have Mathmech. Not much I can say about this deck. I don't. Mathmech is just, it's not it right now. I would put it above Altergeist because it's definitely better, but I would not play Mathmecha right now. There's way better options. Next we have Plunder Patrol. Labyrinth Plunder Patrol, Loop, Runic Plunder Patrol, whatever variant you like to play. I'd say this is Rogue. This deck is decent. Blackbeard's a very good link too, and it can set up pretty decent disruptions. So I'd put it around, like, I'd say right here. This is definitely where it goes for sure. And next we have Pearly. Now Pearly, this is arguably a top 5 deck, maybe even top 3. The only problem with this deck is that it's very hard to play. And this deck has had many tops. Obviously, you know, it recently won the 3v3 along with Unchained in with, you know, Kamal Crooks using the deck. I think he was also playing it at Cancun as well. But Pearly's a very solid tier 1.5 deck. I think it's definitely better than Chimera. So I'll put it above Chimera. This is a very strong deck, for sure. Next we have Rescue Ace. Now, Rescue Ace is kinda difficult to place, because this deck, don't get me wrong, this deck is very good, and it's only going to continue to get better with the Diabell Star cards that are coming out, you know? So, for now, I think Rescue Ace is probably, like, the best tier 2 deck, like, in this category. I don't think it's quite better than all these other decks. Rescue Ace has had some tops. Actually, not even some. It's had lots of tops. But Rescue Ace, they lose to evenly matched, things like that, Lightning Storm. But the more complicated this deck gets, and the more you know, this deck doesn't use this extra deck a lot. So the more flexible end boards players are able to make with like Terahertz or whatever the Cyber Link monster is called right now, this deck will continue to get better. So I'll put it at the top of tier 2. I think Rescue Ace is it's a great Yu-Gi-Oh deck for sure. Next we have Rikus and Avalon. Now plants, I think plants are pretty strong. They're a pretty good tier 2 deck. They're not crazy. You know, I mean they are crazy. They're pretty good. Lots of people just still don't know what this deck does after 2 years. But I guess that's how it's gonna be. So I'll definitely put in tier 2. Next we have Salad. Now with Gazelle going to 3, I think Salad was already strong in the fact that it didn't lose to things like Droll and hand traps. This deck's very consistent. This deck is a consistent monster. With Gazelle to 3, it's only gonna help that. But then again, if you're a better player right now, you're honestly just main decking Nib for things like Unchained. I know Unchained can play around Nib, but Nib is just still a great card right now. And so this deck's end board is basically Nib. If you're unlucky. But I think Salad, with the consistency boost it gets from the 2 Gazelle, I'll have to throw it in tier 2. I don't think it will be better than like Rika or Branded or things like Rescue Ace. But I'll definitely put it above Infernoble Knights because I think this deck's end board isn't bad. It has like a mid-range kind of play style. Its end board can be punished, but I think I'll put it in tier 2 because of the consistency boost. Next we have Synchrons. Honestly guys, this deck is expensive, and for how expensive it is, I would say don't play, because this deck just loses and bricks hard to lots of different things. But I'll put it in Rogue because it has a very powerful end board. Like I said, it has the same problem as things like Dark World and Vanadium. But I'll throw that right here. I think it's a Rogue deck. It's definitely not better than these other decks above it, but it's a Rogue deck. Next we have Striker. Guys, I don't know how many times I gotta say it. For all the people who fangirl over this deck will never be good again. I'm not even gonna lie. Engage to 3 probably won't do anything. Drones to 3 probably won't do anything. This deck is just power crept. The disruptions it make, any deck above it can play through at least 2 or 3 of its disruptions. Sky Striker's just not good. Definitely don't play this deck right now. Next we have Sprite. Now Sprite, this deck got insanely power crept. So for all variants, I'm gonna have to put it in I'm gonna have to put it towards the bottom of tier. I'm gonna have to put it towards the bottom of tier 2. Sprite honestly, just like I said, got very power crept. There's not really a mainstream variant. It hasn't been getting lots of tops right now. The best variant probably being the Runic for a higher version, and even then, that version's not too good because lots of its effects, you know, it's really bad into decks like Unchained, you know, decks like Floandries that, you know, they hard stop special summon monsters. Things like Pearly. Pearly's disruptions are very strong against Sprite. They bounce back monsters. Chimera maybe not so much because the Runic cards. The Runic cards are kind of really good in the Chimera. And even like decks like Dragon and Lab. Every deck just above Sprite right now that's above it can easily play through most of its boards. Sprite is not too good, but it's definitely very consistent and can make some strong end boards. So for that, I'll put it at tier 2. Next we have Sword Soul. Now, Sword Soul is also another consistent monster. This deck, this is like one of those decks you can always fall back onto. So I think it's decent. I think Sword Soul's decent. It's not better than Sprite, but I almost would put it in tier 2, but I don't think I can put it in tier 2. So for that reason, I'll put it in top of Rogue for sure. Now, I think I'm gonna save this one for last because this is kind of the talk of the town right now. But next we have Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul is a pretty nice tier 2 deck, I'd say. I put it around like right here. Vanquish Soul is a Chad deck for sure. This deck needs Ryzen to function, and with the super heavy stuff like we saw at the 3v3 YCS, this deck can get pretty spicy. There's lots of spicy techs it can play. Has a very loose extra deck. It's also decently consistent. It can brick. This is just like the definition of a nice mid-range deck that a good player can go far with. But it's just not better than most of these decks above it, unfortunately. So for that reason, I think it's better than Plants. So I'll put it right here in tier 2 next to Brandon. Next we have Trap Tricks. Trap Tricks is just it's a nice rogue strategy. It's just the worst version of Labyrinth. It's definitely not bad. It's very cheap. So if you can play it and you don't want to play Labyrinth, I'd recommend playing it. Why not? You might not go far with this deck at like a big event, but Trap Tricks is definitely not a bad rogue deck. So for that, I'll put it in rogue. And next we have Tier. Now Tier Laments, with the Rise Art gone and Bestial Magma at 1, this deck, guys, this deck is nothing short of scary. I did not mean to put it there. Okay, just yeah, this deck is nothing short of scary. Like, let's not underestimate this deck at all. There's lots of tech options you can play with this deck, and especially with Age of Overlord coming out, the Horus cards will probably be played in this deck. I don't, honestly, we're gonna have to see how things shape out, but I think if Tier is able to shine this format, they can easily be Tier 1.5. They won't be better than Unchained, but they can easily be up here. Because a deck like Floanderies definitely has a great matchup in the Tier. But Tier, I would definitely have to say for now, Tier is tier 2. I think this format, it probably will be better than Branded. I think lots of players are gonna hop on this deck since it's I don't know why people just love this deck, even though I absolutely dread it. I mean, I did play it when I had to because it was tier 0, but so yeah, this is the tier list post YCS Cancun. You know, like the video, subscribe, help out the channel, comment any of your opinions you've had on the video. Let us know what we can improve on. You know, we're trying to grow our new channel and stuff. So hope you all have a good day.